Alright, we gotta talk about March 7th, Evernight, whatever the heck you want to call her, right? Even though her kit isn't technically finalized, so keep that in mind, we know enough about her now to at least get a general idea of what she's gonna be like on release. And it's interesting to say the least, so let's get into this. Okie dokie, so let's first just get this out of the way. She is 100% a shill character for Hoyoverse, okay? She's not just yet another teammate for casters if you want to put her on that type of team setup. She's also a massive memo sprite shill. She wants your entire team to literally be memo sprites. This locks you down pretty darn hard because not only do you want characters that can synergize with her kit, etc., but they also want to be memo sprite members. In fact, Hyacinth actually seems like the character that's going to have the most synergy with Evernight, at least as far as building stacks and such are concerned. Don't forget about that light cone on Hyacinth as well, because that also seems like it's going to be synergetic with Evernight too. Speaking of light cones, Evernight also got a light cone change because she also had a lot of changes within her kit with her energy engine, and so you could basically say, in fact a lot of people are saying, that her energy engine was taken out of her base kit and split into part of her base kit but also into her light cone. But I will say it actually seems more like the new energy engine she has within her base kit is actually pretty good. And I don't really feel like people should necessarily jump the gun and say that you have to get her light cone, for example. It's just one of those situations where, yet again, they're sort of making this a FOMO light cone, where, even though you probably don't necessarily need it, people are going to really want it, considering the synergies that you get off of it, considering how much you get from it. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. Let's go over a little bit of what March 7th, Evernight, whatever the heck you want to call her, is doing in her kit, obviously with the understanding that this isn't finalized yet, okay? So keep that in mind. Alright, so she has this jellyfish, right? And get your mind out of the gutter, okay? That's for Saturday night. It's just a normal jellyfish, okay? And then she has to build up these charge points. When she gets enough charge points, she will be able to explode the jellyfish, and the jellyfish deals a bunch of damage, and it gives her energy, it advances her, etc. She also has Memoria that she's building up, and she builds up Memoria by basically having you or your member sprites take damage. So obviously she's yet another HP scaler, and obviously getting hit will be able to give you a benefit in a way, right? Because you're able to build Memoria off of that. Also, if you drain your own HP or your Memo Sprite's HP, this will also give you Memoria. And Memoria obviously are these charges that you're going to be building up. I don't want to disclose how many charges you need at this time just in case it ends up changing, but it is a pretty healthy amount considering how fast you end up generating these things on a team like this. So basically, she wants to get the jellyfish out there as fast as possible, and she wants to lose enough HP to blow up the jellyfish as fast as possible, and essentially rinse and repeat this process, and the more Memo Sprites you have on your team, the better to be able to help her do this. And as of right now, Hyacinth and Casterus are the two best pairings for her in order to be able to do that. Her skill will thankfully be a way of her to be able to lose HP. It will also boost the crit damage of all Memo Sprites on a team. Yeah, she is a Memo Sprite shill. But also, if she already has her Memo Sprite on the field, you'll also get some Memoria for that too. Now, both March 7th and her Memo Sprite, if they lose HP, either one of them, you'll end up getting a crit boost for both of them. They kind of are like, they're a pair, right? Her ultimate can bring back the jellyfish, and it also pops off an AoE when it ends up coming onto the field as well through that ult. It also sends her into a special enhanced state where enemies receive more damage, so that's going to benefit your entire team, but it also boosts your Evernight's damage and also the Memo Sprite's damage as well. It also gives her crowd control debuffs for both of the Memo Sprite and the user, so it's a pretty crazy ultimate. And even though we already spoke on several parts of her talent when we were going over her kit, I do want to mention that she actually does get to start battle as part of her talent with the Memo Sprite out already. And there were some changes to her kit in version 3 as well. We'll go over that in just a moment here. And coming out of her main traces, you're going to be able to get crit rate for her and the Memo Sprite, which is going to make it easier for her to be able to be built. A really huge thing. I can't stress that enough. Also, you're going to be getting energy regen and just some straight up energy right at the start of battle and some Memoria. The energy regen, by the way, is part of a new addition to her kit that wasn't necessarily there before. I think this is actually going to be a really big benefit. Like, some people were calling version 3 nerf for her, but I actually think it's more of a balancing thing for her. Some things were taken away and some things were given. But one of the abilities that she has that wasn't affected is her shill ability, which is the more remembrance characters you have, the more crit damage that she's going to be giving to all of your memo sprites. And again, you want a full team because it gives you more of a boost. And just some real quick things about the jellyfish here that I thought were kind of maybe important. Obviously, it automatically attacks an enemy target, and it's going to prioritize the one that Evernight last hit if it can. Also, it's going to be immune to crowd control debuffs, which is pretty cool. It also gives Evernight HP when it is summoned, which is cool, and obviously a way to help give Evernight back some of her HP that she was using to get the memo sprite out there in the first place. And it also immediately takes action right after it comes out onto the field as well. And it also gives you, we already talked about this a little bit earlier, it gives you energy and it gives you an action advance when it goes away. But it will also give Evernight a speed boost when it goes away as well. And if you made it leave the field by using one of her special abilities called Dream Dissolving as due, based on the amount of Memoria used, it will additionally give her a percentage speed boost on top of that. We already briefly spoke on the fact that you're basically trying to build up enough Memoria to blow up your jellyfish and splooge all over your enemies, and the amount of damage is going to again be based off of HP. So that's the general idea of what's going on with her. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit more to that. Obviously, she has multipliers and things we could go over, but some of those things get fine-tuned as her kit is developed over time, so it's not necessarily worth getting super hung up on that stuff, especially when version 3 completely switched up her multipliers. It took certain things away from her and ended up giving her certain things. So let's go over that briefly. Now, I don't really want to get too hung up on her past kit because that doesn't really matter anymore, does it? But in essence, what's now happened to her is it's kind of a balancing situation where they took some synergy away from her and like Casterus and how some of her stacking and energy regen ability would be able to work out. And they've given her like bigger multipliers and things like that now, where to pretty much her own damage output is generally the same as it used to be before the changes. So again, this is why I'm calling it a balancing situation. While some might say nerf, buff, this or that, it's genuinely just a balancing situation. But I do want to point out that some of the damage multiplier increases that she got in this new version will also affect the team-wide damage buffs that she ends up giving. So it's actually possible she may have actually been buffed overall in this situation because your overall team damage matters more than your own personal individual character damage. But now that we can understand the basics of how she works, let's go over some things here that I think are important to talk about. The stuff that is kind of like the point of the video here. Despite how much everyone loves this character, and everybody loves this character, right? This is our stupid girl, okay? This has been our comedic relief since 1.0. Everybody loves this character. Even if you end up skipping the character, like combat-wise, you'll still probably enjoy them in the story as things progress forward. But at the end of the day, this is still a shill character, okay? And that's probably gonna rub people the wrong way. At the end of the day, all that really matters is that you're having fun. So if you still want to build the character, still want to pull the character, all power to you, bucko. Go ahead and do that. I'm not trying to stop you from that. I just think it is important to note that this is a pretty restricted character, okay? Your team is basically locked in because she is a memo sprite shill, right? And she's not even just a memo sprite shill. She really does want more specific characters. Hyocine's basically locked in, right? Evernight, well, obviously it's an Evernight team, right? So she's locked in too. Casterus basically locked in because Aglaya just does not have the same synergy. And then Remembrance Trailblazer. That's pretty much it for right now. Now, I have a feeling on launch, this character is going to be a whole heckin' of a lot of fun. If you'll pull this character, you're going to be having a great time, okay? But it's going to be pretty restricted, and you're not going to be able to have a lot of variation. Like, you're not really going to be able to switch a lot of characters out of these slots and still have the same type of performance. You know what I'm saying? Like we have with a lot of other teams. Sometimes you just want to try something fun and interesting, something different, and you can't get that same performance on this team if you do that. Now, I'm sure many of us are going to try to find fun, cool ways of subbing out like one of the characters to try to see if some support could like sub in and like really make this team do something cool and off meta, but we just don't know if it's going to happen. Oh, but I do quickly want to address like the new version 3 situation, right? Because a lot of people are talking smack on Dan Hung, and we'll go over that. Don't worry, that's a separate video though. But like a lot of people were kind of talking smack on Evernight too, and I don't feel like people should be worried about this like buff nerf situation with her. It's just a rebalancing situation. There's probably more of it to come, and I don't think this is a bad thing. I think it's honestly maybe even potentially more damage output for your whole team the way it's set up now than it was before. I could be wrong on that. Proper playtesting would have been needed, but again, the old kit doesn't even matter anymore. Obviously, some people are going to point out to this new light cone thing too, where the light cone, I have a feeling, is going to look very, very sexy when we see the damage numbers come out and whatnot compared to other light cones for her. And again, it's a remembrance character. Not a whole lot of light cone options for her, right? Especially if you're running her on a Castris team. You're probably using a Castris light cone on Castris, or a free-to-play light cone on that Castris, and then what the heck are you using on Evernight now? Okay, so you kind of have a light cone problem in a way, no matter how you look at it, right? You may have already figured that out. You may already just be using 2 free-to-play options on them or something like that, and you might feel genuinely okay about that. But I do want to point out that some folks are going to look at that light cone and feel a little bit of FOMO, but don't go crazy yet, right? Especially with light cones, I say never pull on day 1. Test the character out on your teams, on your account, to find out if you feel like you even really need something like that. Because to be honest with you, you really don't need light cones in this game. I've only ever pulled like 1 or 2 light cones, and I never even needed to do it. I just kind of felt like doing it because I had the pulls. It's more important to understand the nuances of combat and like set up your teams and your strategies really well, synergize things, and just simply perform in combat rather than only having like super high powered like whale gear or something. In fact, I'd say like rolling really good relics is actually more beneficial to you than having like a light cone, for example. So don't feel like you have to have her best in slot team on day 1, or even like a light cone or like Eidolons, whatever, right? But I do want to point out that this character might be a skip for some people, right? Not even necessarily as like a morals thing, like, oh, I don't want to pull the shill character. Like quite literally, like someone like myself who skipped Castris and Aglaia because I wanted to stand on business. Bro, unless I'm running hyper carry Evernight or something, like I'm kind of screwed, right, for that situation. So if you're in a similar situation, you probably are skipping too. Now, I'm not saying you should skip, right? I'm not saying this character's bad either. In fact, I think this character is going to be absolutely insane, but this character might not be as appealing to everybody as we may have originally thought. This isn't going to be some like universal character that everybody can enjoy to the fullest. It's going to be only for everyone that has those remembrance characters, and a lot of people are those people. So if you're one of those folks and you pull this character, I hope you enjoy. If you're interested in pulling her, go for it. Let me know if you are going to be going for it. Let me know if you're going to be skipping or whatever the heck it is you're going to do. Consider that option, because this is a big investment. You're going to need all these pieces in order to make this team work at its highest capacity. So just keep that in mind, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.